Welcome to the KZGN News. Today we'll bring you news that Congress has voted to not close Gitmo, news from California City Police, an update on the Dale Howard property cleanup, news from Ridgecrest Regional Hospital, today's KZGN Talking Points editorial, weather, sports, and much more.
From the Rademacher Hills to Bee Mountain and the mighty Sierras, Ridgecrest to Inyokern and China Lake, this is your news for the Indian Wells Valley with the KZGN News crew.
Hello, I'm Tom Wicknick. Thanks for joining us for the news affecting Ridgecrest and the Indian Wells Valley. As reported earlier this week, President Obama has been announcing plans to close the prison at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And the White House has warned that if Congress attempted to block his plan, that he would have to look at using his executive order authority to do it around Congress. Congress has now reacted to that plan. Newly elected House Speaker Paul Ryan warned President Obama against attempting to use an executive order to close the U.S. detention center at Guantanamo Bay. With the Senate following the House on Monday in passing a new defense spending bill that included a ban on shuttering the prison and transferring prisoners to U.S. soil, the White House is reportedly mulling the idea of using an executive order to fulfill Obama's campaign promise. Ryan said, he doesn't have the authority to do it. It's just that clear. He went on to say, look, we passed the bill in the House with 390 votes, well over enough to override a veto. The Senate today passed this bill with 91 votes, well over what is needed to override his veto. The language is very clear that he can't transfer the prisoners, and this is language that was put in the defense bill by Democrats when they ran Congress. On the topic of tax reform, Ryan declined to give specifics for tax reform plans that Republicans would soon begin crafting. But he did emphasize the need for fewer loopholes and deductions. Ryan also depicted Social Security and Medicare as being on the verge of bankruptcy. We need to act to shore them up, Ryan said. Just prior to the last Republican presidential debate, Ryan provided these comments on frontrunners Donald Trump and Ben Carson. You don't have to be elected in government as a governor or senator or congressman to be an excellent president, Ryan said. Those without elected experience should be considered for the presidency. In news from California City, here's an urgent notice from the California City Police Department. The California City Police Department is looking for a man seen leaving the area of a double stabbing. Jamie Montez, 31, should be considered armed and dangerous, police said. He has an extensive violent history. According to police, the stabbing occurred in California City. Police didn't say when the stabbing happened or who was injured. While this happened in California City, they are just a short 45-minute drive from here. So be alert and report any suspicious people to the Ridgecrest Police Department. But if anyone has any specific information on Montez's location, they are asked to call the California City Police at 760-373-8606. Now, in an update about the Dale Howard property cleanup case, it appears things are getting close to being done. In case you don't know about this case, it is a case that has been ongoing for about 10 years now. The case involves Mr. Howard that owns several properties in Ridgecrest Heights, and he started using them as a storage lot for a lot of stuff, eventually turning them into a junkyard. The problem, the way he was using the property is not in conformance to zoning laws for residential neighborhoods. Additionally, he had certain animals on the property that were not permitted in the city limits, and they often bothered neighbors. The city brought a court action against Mr. Howard. Well, the case stayed in the courts for years. Eventually, the city prevailed against Mr. Howard. The court ordered him to clean the property, or the court would appoint a receiver to come in and clean it for him, and the cost of the cleanup would be assessed against him. Well, last year, the court finally ordered the cleanup to proceed, and at that time, Mr. Howard then did start cleaning up some of it on his own. Most of what he removed had value. Then the receiver took over and did the rest of the cleanup. A major portion of the cleanup was the leveling and hauling away of a single-family home that was half burned down. There is still a little more that needs to be done. Some more walls and fences need to come down, and final grading of the lands also needs to be done. The receiver has now petitioned to get paid out of a court-ordered reserve account Mr. Howard had to furnish to the court at the start of the trial. There is $50,000 available. The receiver has now petitioned the court to be paid that $50,000. The city has spent well into six figures prosecuting this case. Mr. Howard also states he spent more than six figures defending himself. I asked him once last year why he just doesn't save all the money and just clean it up. His answer to me was he felt the city law didn't apply to him because he was there before the city incorporated. But the case ultimately showed he didn't actually start using the property as storage until the 1970s, well after the city's incorporation in 1963. Additionally, the courts have ruled in many cases when cities incorporate, every citizen within the boundaries have the opportunity to accept or oppose the incorporation. During that process, the city's municipal code is established, setting the laws of the new city. Once the citizens vote to accept the Articles of Incorporation, they agree to be under the laws of the newly established city. There is no grandfather protections. If any property owners are not in compliance with the new laws, they are provided a reasonable amount of time to come into compliance with the new laws. Reasonable time is generally about 2 years, but ultimately the courts rule on what is a reasonable period of time. After which, if they don't come into compliance, then the city can bring action against them to come into compliance. Anyway, this case is close to being done now. Next, we get this report from Ridgecrest Regional Hospital. Have your say. Your input is valuable. To understand the health needs and concerns in our community, Ridgecrest Regional Hospital conducts a Community Health Needs Assessment every 3 years. As part of the assessment, we survey community residents to better understand their health concerns and services in the community. The information from the survey, along with public health data and community health experts' input, will enable the hospital and its board of directors to develop short-term and long-term plans to improve and introduce health services for the community. The survey is conducted by an independent organization, so we want to assure you that your answers are kept anonymous. They do not require your name or any other personal information by which you can be identified. They will combine your answers with other answers and will not use your names or other identifying information in any reports or presentations. You can take the survey online, or if you want to mail in a survey, you can do so. If you do not receive a mail-in survey and are interested in completing a hard copy, you can obtain a copy from Ridgecrest Regional Hospital main building at the check-in desk. Responses are to be provided by the end of December. Now stay with us for today's KZGN News Talking Points editorial when we come back. Thanks for staying with us. Now it's time for the 94th KZGN News Talking Points editorial. Here's today's topic. Is political correctness more important than free speech? Well, what are we seeing around the country? There are numerous examples in the media, on college campuses, and in communities of intolerance for free speech. There's a report of a college administration putting out a notice like this. Students and faculty have a right to study, work, and enjoy a college environment free of intolerant speech. On the surface of that statement, I agree. But wait, who decides what speech is intolerant? Do we have to take a speech and put it to a vote on whether it may be offensive? Does a majority vote nullify the First Amendment to the Constitution? Even worse, does a minority vote nullify the First Amendment? Or worse yet, can one person suppress another person's right of free speech? Who decides what speech is intolerant? When I grew up, my buddies and I were a whole diverse nationality background. We were aware of our diversity. Yes, we were. Did we also tease each other sometimes about our nationalities? Yes, we did. Did anyone get mad or try and stop the talk? No. Why? Because it was all in fun. Take me, for example. I'm 1/3 German, 1/3 Polish, and 1/3 Scandinavian and Asian. So what would you try and call me to offend me? I'll tell you this, if you tried to offend me by using what is now considered an ethnic slur, it wouldn't bother me at all. You know why? Because I'm an American. That's why. I'm not a German American or Polish American or any other qualified American. I'm an American. And guess what? If you want to criticize me because I'm an American, then you can do that too, because the Constitution gives you the right of free speech. Other than certain phrases which the courts have determined unlawful, free speech is allowed. Do people say things I don't like? You bet. But I don't try to stop them. But in today's progressive political environment, they believe everyone has to be tolerant of their speech, but they do not afford that same right to the opposing speech. Tolerance is supposed to work equally for all. The First Amendment applies to all of us equally. Example, when I grew up, certain words were deemed inappropriate in normal conversation. I'm referring to swear words. Well, our generation viewed the use of those words as language of the uneducated, people that were not smart enough to make their point without the use of swear words. Now today, many of the young often use those words in their normal conversation. Those swear words are not viewed as inappropriate by many in this young generation. But my generation is offended by those words. Did we raise our kids to not use that language? Yes, we did. And if we caught them using that poor language, they got punished. But as parents, we have a right to raise our kids as we see right. However, that right to suppress another person's speech stops when it goes into the public realm. People have the right to voice their opinions, just as opponents have their right to speak in opposition to that person. But one does not have the right to stop the speech they might find offensive. They have the right to oppose, to not listen to it, to go away. There were all sorts of phrases we used in the old days that are now not politically correct. But sometimes people are just too sensitive. They have no sense of humor. Lighten up, people. Sometimes things are just said as a joke. Even comedians come under attack sometimes for offensive comments. Get real, people. They are comedians. That tells you it's supposed to be a joke. Now I know what you're thinking. Comedians often bring in political humor to their routines. That will always offend one side or the other, but they still have the right to say it. So why aren't the many colleges now taking the same stand for free speech? These supposed institutions of higher learning are not allowing diversity unless it fits a progressive definition of diversity. They allow students to protest to suppress free speech. In fact, many college professors encourage suppression of free speech that they don't agree with. Instead of teaching tolerance of free speech, students are being taught to go in and disrupt people that are saying and speaking things they don't agree with. And where's the media on this? Where is their anger against these institutions allowing suppression of free speech? Most of the mainstream media is actually supporting this political correctness because it fits the progressive agenda they support. But if some large groups started to rise up against their free speech rights, they'd be screaming about their First Amendment rights. How about it, media? How about defending your opponent's right to the same freedom you assert for yourself? Or does free speech only apply to you? Political correctness has got to stop. Free speech is a right we all have. Tolerance includes tolerance of speech you don't agree with. Hey, I grew up in the 60s and 70s. I understand protests. But back then, young people protested political policies and unfairness to people's rights. Today, protests are attempts to shut down the basic free speech right. They better be careful. Your protest could backfire on you. Your own protest to stop opposing speech could just wind up suppressing your right to speak as well. Think about it. In conclusion, the Constitution says we have the rights of free speech. It's the law of the land. If you don't like it, go somewhere else or work to change the law. Until then, deal with it. And by the way, this editorial was allowed under the First Amendment. I'm Tom Winnick, and that's what I think. I'd like to know what you think. If you have any comments about this editorial or would like to discuss or recommend a topic, I'd like to hear from you. Please email them to info@kzgn.net. Now stay tuned for Burroughs Bits, weather, and sports when we come back.
From the Burroughs High School TV studio, I'm Destiny Matthews with the Burroughs Video Bits for Thursday, November 12th, 2015. Let's take a look at how the athletes of the school are doing from the burrowsathletics.org website. Writers Inc. is sponsoring the Fall Writing and Art Contest. For info, visit the Writers Inc. page on the school website. Enter and show off your great creativity and have a chance to win amazing prizes. The VHS Band is fundraising, selling $20 Blu-ray video disc of the September Ridgecrest Parade of 1,000 Flags. Funds help us to perform in the 2040th July 4th Independence Day Parade in Washington, D.C. Don't forget to check your closets for extra coats. The Friends of Rachel Club is collecting jackets and outerwear to donate to the Salvation Army. Join us in the Parker Performing Arts Center this Friday and Saturday for the theater program production of The Wizard of Oz. Doors opening at 6:30 p.m. with curtains rising at 7 p.m. Sierra Sands Unified School District is seeking parent and community participation on the District Leadership Committee. Members of the committee are responsible for reviewing and providing input on district goals, actions, and services aligned to 8 state priorities to improve student achievement. That's our segment for the Burroughs High School TV broadcast of Ridgecrest, California. This is Destiny Matthews signing off.
Now let's go to Lane with the weather.
Thank you, Tom. From the National Weather Service, a potent storm system will affect the Pacific Northwest Thursday through early Sunday. In addition to heavy rain, which could exceed 10 inches for some mountain locations, wind gusts of 40 to 50 miles per hour are possible. Temperatures across the nation: Carolinas at 72, Georgia at 67, Arkansas at 65, northern Texas at 59, Arizona at 71, and Los Angeles at 73. For us locally, tonight, clear with a low around 29, southwest wind 5 miles per hour. Friday, sunny with a high near 67, southwest wind 5 miles per hour. Friday night, clear with a low around 38, west wind 5 miles per hour. Saturday, sunny with a high near 68, southwest wind 5 miles per hour. Saturday night, mostly clear with a low around 39, northwest wind 5 miles per hour. Sunday, mostly sunny with a high near 66, west wind 5 miles per hour. Sunday night, partly cloudy with a low around 40, west-northwest wind 15 to 20 miles per hour. And Monday, mostly sunny with a high near 62, northeast wind 5 to 15 miles per hour. And that is your forecast for the IWV. Now back to Tom.
Thanks, Lane. And now here's Tom Eck with sports.
And a very pleasant Thursday evening to everyone. Let's start with local football. Burroughs High School football tomorrow, big playoff game at Barstow. That game will start at 7 o'clock over in Barstow. If you can't get to the game, you can tune in on 12:40 a.m. KLOA will be on the air at 6:50 with a pregame, 7 o'clock for the kickoff. The winner, more than likely, will get a trip down to Riverside or stay home to play against a school from the Riverside area. All right, let's talk about the Todd Mather Show tonight on 12:40 a.m. at 7 o'clock. You can catch him, and he'll be talking about the game tomorrow night. It's a huge game, first Burroughs game in a couple years for the playoffs for football. They ended up third in a very good league. Barstow ended up 9-1 in a rather weak league. So we'll see what happens Friday night. You can catch Todd tonight. He'll be talking about that. Also tonight is the tennis banquet for the girls' varsity tennis team, and they'll have some pictures tomorrow in the paper. Canoa Prince did a very good job. The tennis team at Burroughs took second place in their league, and they lost in the playoffs to Etiwanda last week. A good season for Canoa Prince. The cross-country team at Burroughs High School took third in the league this year. That's a very good finish for them in a very, very tough league for cross-country. All right, NBA notes. The Lakers lose 101-99 last night in Orlando against the Magic, and the Clippers took it on the nose last night. They lost to the Dallas Mavericks. Now, the Clippers will be in action tonight against the Phoenix Suns in Phoenix. The Clippers have won 7 games in a row in Phoenix against the Suns. A heck of a lot of college football this weekend. On tomorrow's segment of sports, we'll talk about some of those games coming up. There are a couple of interesting games of note. One will be the UCLA Bruins, or the USC Trojans, I beg your pardon, will go to Colorado to take on the Buffalo, and that'll be a pretty interesting game. Colorado much improved this year. Huge game for UCLA. If they win, they're still in the hunt for a championship in the Southern Division of the Pacific 12. All right, that's your sports for this Thursday. Don't forget, Todd Mather tonight on 12:40 a.m. Burroughs football tomorrow night. Huge game against Barstow playoffs. Winner take all, loser go home. That's your sports for Thursday. I'm Tom Heck for KZGN.
So that's the news for today. Also, KZGN-TV know you have a choice in what you watch for your news. We all thank you for choosing KZGN-TV, Ridgecrest's only locally owned community TV station. Stay tuned for Ridgecrest Talk. And check out this video of a dog watching TV. I wonder if he's watching KZGN-TV.